Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be doing a guide for Austria for EU4 1.36 King of Kings. So Austria is a nation that starts off as the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, and as many of you know, but many of you don't know as well, Austria is probably one of the easiest and best nations to do a world conquest and one faith with, thanks to its amazing diplomatically and religiously focused national ideas and missions, and due to the fact that as the Holy Roman Emperor will be revoking the privilege in the Holy Roman Empire and making every nation that is in the HRE over here our subject. With that, we'll be feeding the entirety of the world to our subjects, and we won't really have to do much ourselves because we will have our subjects do the bidding until the very end, where we finally renovate the empire and the entire world basically becomes the Holy Roman Empire. Along the way to your world conquest and one faith, you will be vassalizing, PUing, and conquering various nations around the world with extreme ease because, like I said, your subjects will do all the bidding for you, and by following along with these amazing missions right here, you will be achieving that in no time. Not only does Austria have awesome missions right here, one of the best mission trees in the game, we also start off with the Austrian Archduchy Tier 1 government reform, which makes strong duchies give the nobles even more loyalty. We got minus 33% liberty desire from subjects, plus 5 nobles influence, and of course later we'll be getting an even more powerful Tier 1 unique government reform. Austrian ideas are some of the best in the game, starting off with plus 10% morale of armies and plus 30% improved relations, which is absolutely insane. Then we got plus 50% chance of a new era as a finisher, but in the meantime, we have the amazing ideas such as this one for Imperial Authority growth plus 10% and Diplo Annex discount minus 15%. Fort maintenance discount and plus 15% national garrison growth, yearly inflation reduction and interest per annum, plus 2 diplo rep, plus 2% missionary strength, plus 1 diplo relations, plus 5% discipline, and plus 30% reinforced speed. So this awesome government reform, the awesome mission tree, the awesome national ideas, and the fact that we're not ever going to stop being the HRE Emperor and we're going to pass all these reforms makes Austria one of the best and my favorite nation in the game. So sit back, relax, and learn what you need to do as Austria to conquer the world and turn it all into one faith. Alright, here we are as Austria, and obviously we're going to be kickstarting our campaign right here by doing this mission right here, secure electors, which requires us to have 5 electors voting for us and them to have 100 opinion of us. As you can see, every elector is already voting for us, so we just gotta make some of these guys like us in order for us to gain a restoration of Union CB on Bohemia and PU Bohemia. That's exactly how we're going to be starting our game, by PUing Bohemia. That's our first war. But in the meantime, it's time for the setup. So first you're going to go into your estates right here and summon the Diet. You can pick whichever agenda is best for you. Then we're going to give the clergy religious state and clerical advisory council, along with religious diplomats and clerical education. Then we're going to give the nobles primacy of the nobility, increased levies, and aristocratic councilors. And we're going to give the burghers land of commerce, patronage of the arts, commercial advisory board, and indebted to the burghers. Then we're going to seize land. Next, it's time to hire some advisors. We are sort of making money as Austria right at the start. We will be losing money just a little bit, but soon we'll be deving up our gold mine right here, which is going to enable us to make a ton of money. So go ahead and hire whichever level 1 admin advisor you want. I'm going to get this tax guy. Get a diplo rep or improve relations level 1 dip advisor, but you do always have this level 2 half cost improve relations guy, so I do recommend hiring him, even though he's going to cost a little bit more money. He's still cheaper. Then get a morale, discipline, fort defense, or manpower level 1 mill advisor. I actually don't have any of those guys as a level 1 advisor, so I'm just going to get this reinforced speed guy. Next, it's time to rearrange our armies a little bit, so you can go ahead and send both of these armies over to Vienna, and now it's time for some diplomatic relations. Obviously, we do want to ally at least 3 electors, so we can have some people voting for us all the time. We're not worrying about Bohemia just yet, because even though they're going to hate us a bit when we PU them, later on we'll usurp the electorate from them, and we will take their electorship slot. So the nations that I recommend you ally are Brandenburg and then some of these guys right here. Cologne, Trier, Mainz, the Palatinate, whichever ones you want to. And of course, the Pope and Castile as well. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to ally the Pope here immediately. I'm going to go ahead and Royal Marry Castile. We do have a pretty high chance of PUing Castile / Spain later on, so we are going to be having friendly relations with them, at least until we conquer the entirety of France. And now I'm also going to Royal Marry the Palatinate. Once these guys are back, I'm going to work on allying 3 more electors. So the Palatinate, Cologne, and Brandenburg. And your other non-elector allies are the Pope and Castile. And then you can finally go ahead and set some rivals, pretty much rival the nations that have rivaled you. For example, I'm going to rival the Ottomans right here, Denmark, and Venice. Something else you need to do if Burgundy has started friendly towards you is to Royal Marry and ally them as well. If they haven't started off friendly, if they've rivaled you or something like that, keep improving relations with them and doing everything you can to make them unrival you, because we want to Royal Marry them to increase the chance of us getting the Burgundian succession. We're already eligible since we're the Emperor, but we do want to increase it. So now it's time to unpause for a few months and get all the alliances in order. We're also immediately going to start focusing on dip. While you're allying the 3 electors that you need to, and like I said, it doesn't matter who you pick, I've chosen Brandenburg, Cologne, the Palatinate. In the meantime, improve relations with other electors you're not going to ally in order to get them to 100 opinion of you. So I'm going to improve with Mainz over here, and with Trier, for example, and I'm going to send them gifts and stuff like that as well. Additionally, once your army is over in Vienna, you can go ahead and merge these 2 armies right here, get 1 cavalry regiment and delete it. And you're also going to go ahead and hire 7 more infantry regiments. We want this army to be 24. Something else we want to do as Austria right at the start is try and get Hungary to choose to be our junior partner, because as you all know, our heir right here also becomes the Hungarian heir pretty soon. But in this latest patch in 1.36, Hungary does not choose to become our junior partner that often, but we're still going to try and do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to Royal Marry and ally Hungary as well to have good relations with them, and later, if they don't choose to be our junior partner, we're simply going to break that alliance and royal marriage and go fight them to PU them. But in the meantime, we do want to have good relations with them. Yes, as Austria, pretty much for the entirety of the campaign, will be way over relations limit, but that is completely normal for an Austria playthrough. Something that I have to mention is make sure that you send a royal marriage offer to Burgundy. Never accept a royal marriage offer from them, always send it to them. In about a month or 2, you should have all of your relations in order, so the relations you must have are the Pope, Castile, and Hungary, Burgundy if they haven't rivaled you, and then 3 electors, whichever ones you want, not Bohemia though. Once you've gotten this diplomacy in order, then what you need to do is improve relations with 5 electors to 100 so we can do this mission. As we can see, currently only one of these guys is above 100 for us. In my case, that's the Palatinate, but I'll be doing Brandenburg and Cologne pretty soon, along with Mainz and Trier. So that's what we're doing right now, just trying to accomplish this mission. Once you've gotten all the relations in order, sent a gift to the electors you haven't allied, guaranteed them and stuff like that, so you're pretty close to getting them to 100, you should also start spying on Bohemia. Don't build a claim though, this is only so we can get sieges done a little bit faster. And something else we're immediately going to start doing as well is activating the Encourage Development State Edict over in the state of Tyrol right here, and we're going to start developing our gold mine Intal up to 10 production. I also recommend buying indulgence for your sins. This will help us get more papal influence. And there we go. Now for me, it's July 1445, about 8 months since we started the game, and I can finally do this mission, secure electors right here, because 5 electors are voting for us, and they have 100 opinion of us. Our 3 elector allies, and the 2 nations we've been improving relations with. After this, of course, you can revoke your guarantee on whoever you guaranteed. But once we're ready to take the mission, we need to take a look at what kind of situation Bohemia is in. So we're simply going to right click on them and check their alliances. Bohemia usually does not get strong allies. They'll be allied to 1 to 3 minor HRE nations. In my game, that's Trier and Goslar. Keep in mind though, they have Glogau and Opole as their subjects as well. But as long as they're not allied to anyone super powerful, we're good to go ahead and declare our war over here to PU Bohemia. So in that case, we can totally go ahead and take this mission right here. It gives us prestige and Diplo rep for 15 years along with the restoration of Union CB on Bohemia. And there we go, just like that, we're ready to declare on Bohemia. Now what we're going to do is we're going to merge this army once again. I've split it to not take attrition, and we're going to go ahead and give our ruler Mill Command. And we're also going to go ahead and hire the Free Company, and if you're less experienced and a bit worried about this war, you can go ahead and hire another Merc Company if you want to. In my game, I'm going to hire the Grand Company, for example, to showcase that some of you may be doing this. And once those armies are recruited and their morale is up, we're free to declare on Bohemia. Once those diplomats are back, with one of them, you can improve relations with allies. The other guy we're keeping free to declare on Bohemia, and then once we declare, he'll also be improving relations with allies. Once the Merc companies you've recruited's morale is up, you can go ahead and declare on Bohemia with the restoration of Union CB. Most likely none of your allies will be willing to help out. Either way, you can definitely defeat Bohemia yourself, but after a couple of months, you may be able to call in someone minor like Brandenburg, Cologne, or the Palatinate. It's totally up to you whether you call them in or not. Of course, help is always welcome. Either way, once all of this is done, go ahead and declare on Bohemia. It's time to siege down their capital and PU them. You really only need about 60% war score. There we go, it's only been a month or 2 after I started the war and I can already call in Cologne. You can call in some of your allies, but there is a chance that they might get pieced out and make those guys break their alliance with you. Either way, it's totally up to you whether you call someone in. If you've gotten lucky, Hungary may have gotten Moldavia, which is excellent. That's pretty much your subject as well once you go ahead and PU Hungary. This is not something that's important though, and if Hungary doesn't get Moldavia in your game, it's not a big deal, because even if Poland gets Moldavia, well, we're going to be PUing Poland later on as well. And once you defeat Bohemia, you're good to go ahead and peace out. Like I said earlier, you only really need about 60% war score, and simply right click on this, go over here and select the Union with Bohemia option. It's only 45 AE and only 60% war score. If you want, you can take all of their money as well. It's really not a big deal. So what some people like to do in this war, I'm personally not a fan of it, is taking this province right here, which is the gold mine that Bohemia owns. But it's really not needed at all. You can take it if you want to, totally optional. I don't like to do it personally. So, PU them and possibly take Cheb and all of their money. And there we go. That's our first war done, and we have Bohemia as our junior partner. Now, once you PU Bohemia, you may notice that you are able to take the decision usurp the electorate, where basically Bohemia's electorship gets transferred over to us. That is definitely something we want to do. However, it also says that Bohemia's opinion of Austria will change by negative 100. So really, what we first want to do with Bohemia is get them above positive 100. So even when we take that, it still doesn't drop below 0, which means they would break away from us if our ruler dies. So we're going to improve with Bohemia up to above 100 and then take that decision. In the meantime, though, you can take the mission Control Bohemia, which gives us your legitimacy, imperial authority growth, and a permaclaim on Silesia. Just like that, that part of the mission is done. At this point, you will also be able to take the mission Decline of Hungary, which requires us to have more dev than Hungary. And that gives us a Restoration Union CB on them as well. But don't take this mission just yet. First, we're going to wait to see if Hungary chooses to become our junior partner once this guy ascends to our throne. So, it's time to hold off on this mission. In the meantime, we'll focus on something else. So, now go back home and chill a little bit before we get ready for our next war, which is 99% of the time gonna be versus Venice. In this war, by the way, the mercenary companies weren't needed at all. I am gonna get rid of the grain company. Now I just dev the gold mine and intel up to 10 production as well. Perfect. Once this war is done, start spying on Venice. And start improving relations with Bohemia. You can also go ahead and pay off their debt if they have any. Once the surrender of main war is over, if it even happened at all, personally in my game it didn't happen, as we can see England just gave Maine to France, you need to get relations established with England and later Great Britain, of course, as well. This is because, just like Castile, they're another nation we are pretty easily able to PU later on, not through our missions, just from generic gameplay mechanics, putting our guy on their throne, them just getting our guy on their throne, something like that. And of course, if we do end up PUing them and Castile, it'll be great because they're colonizers and stuff like that. I do need to mention that, of course, England later on can flip to Protestant or more likely Anglican when the Protestant Reformation spawns. When that does happen, if you're going for a one faith, honestly, I do recommend Alt F4ing that decision until England chooses to remain Catholic. We don't really want a colonizer colonizing the New World in anything other than Catholic. So, once the surrender of main war is over, or if it didn't happen at all, go ahead and get relations up with England as well. Yes, we are way over relations limit, it's normal. During peacetime, of course, you can lower army maintenance and turn off your forts to save some money. Once a little bit of time has passed, it is time to move on with your second war, which, like I said, is going to be versus Venice. Now, we're not really aiming to conquer that much provinces from Venice over here. Our main goal in this war is to actually take provinces over here that are located in the Balkans, so we start bordering some of these nations over here, so that we can hopefully fight them before the Ottomans do. But keep in mind, even if the Ottomans already fought these guys, it's really not going to be a problem. But that's our main goal in this war. And the secondary goal in this war is to make Venice release a bunch of nations over here. For example, the nation of Aquileia in the province of Friuli, the nation of Padua, the nation of Verona, maybe making them give Bergamo and Brescia back to Milan, since we might PU Milan later on as well. Something like that. We're not really aiming to take any provinces in Italy ourselves in this war. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and declare on Venice. Ideally, they'd also be fighting the Ottomans at this point, but there's totally not a need to wait for that. So I'm going to declare for Istria right here. Be careful, Venice is deceptively strong. Make sure to call in some allies during this war. And there we go. If you're calling in Hungary, also make sure to set these provinces right here as provinces of interest. So Istria, Zara, Spalato, and Cattaro. After that, you're good to go ahead and declare on Venice. And there we go. That's my declaration on them. At this point, You should also have more than 100 relations with Bohemia. In my case, I'm at 110. Now, you can go ahead and take the decision, usurp the electorate. We will lose 5 imperial authority, sure, which is kind of a lot, honestly, and Bohemia will dislike us. But just like that, their electorship is transferred over to us right here. So now we're voting for ourselves, and we're allied to 3 other electors that'll vote for us, and the emperorship is always secure. Of course, once you do become the elector, make sure to go ahead and cast your vote for, well, of course, yourself. While I'm in this war with Venice, I'm improving relations with Bohemia, with outraged countries, and with allies. At this point, my ruler has died. That is actually excellent, something that we want to have happen as often as we can as Austria, because it does give us imperial authority. Of course, you will be re-elected. Ladislas Posthumus will be in charge, unless your original guy dies early, like in my case, in which case you'll have a regency. But this is excellent, because this enables this Hungary thing to happen quicker as well. Either way, later on, we're also going to be abdicating a whole lot in order to farm imperial authority. There's my peace out on Silly, by the way. Something that you may get trapped into when your ruler dies is accepting a royal marriage offer for Burgundy. Like I said, never do this, because when this guy dies right here, the royal marriage gets broken, and we're not that eligible for the Burgundian succession. Always send a royal marriage offer to them yourself. Of course, from other guys, you can totally go ahead and accept it. And once you go ahead and defeat Venice, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna take these 4 provinces here for yourself, Istria, Zara, Spalato, and Cattaro. Then you're gonna make them release Aquileia, Padua, and Verona. And that should be about enough war score if you didn't siege down their capital. In my game, I did get lucky here. Bohemia and the Palatinate did manage to cross. I don't know where Venice's navy went. But if you also manage to take their capital, you can also make them give Ravenna back to the Pope, which is a papal core. We do want to have good relations with the Pope the entirety of the campaign. Later, he's going to join the HRE as well, and that's excellent. And with that, Venice will be left with these two provinces, and anything else they might have down here. In the meantime, Milan may take back its scores from Venice, or someone else might fight them. That's totally not important to what we're doing, unless, of course, Milan gets their provinces back, which would be great if we PU them. But that's pretty much the peace deal. This for you, make them release these 3 guys, and if you have the war score, make them give Ravenna back to the Pope. And then for the rest of the war score, you can take something else, like money and war reps. And that's your second war done. By the time you wrap up your war with Venice, Ladislas Posthumus should be almost 15, and if he is 15, you're going to abdicate with your original ruler. Just make sure Bohemia doesn't hate you first, and then, of course, we'll be able to see if Hungary chooses to become our junior partner, or will we have to fight them as well. But until this guy turns 15, it's time to chill. In the meantime, of course, you can build up a couple of more transports to help you move your troops over here until we conquer these guys. And there we go. In my game, Ladislas Posthumus just ascended to the throne, and Hungary did choose to become a junior partner under me, which is awesome. That is only luck-based. There's nothing you can do about that pretty much. But if you were lucky enough to get Hungary as your junior partner for free, then that's excellent. Now you have them as your junior partner as well, and you're free to move on with your campaign. If, however, Hungary did not choose to be your junior partner, now you break your alliance and royal marriage with them, or the royal marriage is already broken if Ladislas has ascended your throne as well, and then you wait for the truce to expire and you go ahead and PU them. Keep in mind, in the meantime, while you're waiting for the truce to expire, the Ottomans or Poland might fight them. But it's not a problem, since they're going to be smaller to PU later on, less aggressive expansion, and you'll just reconquer their cores from the Ottomans or Poland. So even if they get beaten up in the meantime, it's really not a problem. But once that happens, if you've PU'd Hungary, you're of course going to take this mission right here, and this mission down here as well, a very nice one. We gain some permaclaims and manpower modifiers. But if you haven't PU'd Hungary, now, after the war with Venice is done, and after you've gotten this guy, it's time to declare on them. If at any point you've gotten a female heiress, which I have gotten in my game right here, you won't be eligible to be the next HRE emperor, because females can't be elected HRE emperors, unless you of course pass pragmatic sanction over here. It costs you 25 imperial authority and 25 legitimacy, which is honestly quite a lot, but then you will be able to have female HRE empresses. However, in the early portion of the game, where every point of imperial authority counts, I do not recommend doing that. Instead, I just recommend disinheriting your heir and waiting for a male heir. By the way, I do have over 50 imperial authority. I haven't passed a reform because people aren't voting for it because I'm overextended. But after about 10 years in game, you should be able to pass your first imperial reform. At this point, you will probably also be able to take the mission The Balance of Power, which you should do immediately. And for your Tier 2 government reform, since manpower is completely irrelevant for us as the HRE Emperor, since the numbers are so insane, what I recommend taking is curtail noble privileges. After you've PU'd Hungary, whether it was diplomatically or through a war, what you need to do is to start spying on whichever nations are located right here. In my game, it's still Bosnia, Herzegovina, Serbia, and Ragusa. Albania doesn't exist anymore, so they're out of the picture, but start spying on whoever is here. If Herzegovina still exists, keep them alive, don't destroy them. We're actually going to force them into the HRE later on. But if Bosnia and Serbia still exist, and if they're still their original size, they are going to be our next targets after the Hungary War. Or after the Venice War, if you've gotten Hungary for free. Of course, if it's after 1450 and the Renaissance has spawned, don't forget to activate the Encourage Development State Edict in your capital state of Austria proper and develop your capital Vienna up to 30. Only do it though if you have Tech 4 in every category. Right now I can pass my first Imperial Reform, call for Reichsreform. Whenever you can pass one of these, do it immediately. Don't waste Imperial Authority because everything is wasted, not just the 50 that is required. After you've PU'd Hungary through any means, it is time to continue with your wars by fighting some of these guys down here. Now, like I said earlier, we're not going to be focusing on full annexing these guys. Sure, we do need to fight some of them to shrink them and to prevent the Ottomans from expanding here, if they haven't already expanded there, but we do need to keep them alive with 1 to 2 provinces, and we need to make sure that they are Catholic as well. As you know, Bosnia is already Catholic, but if Herzegovina and Serbia, for example, exist, or Albania, we do need to flip them to Catholic. Actually, Albania is already Catholic, they just have Orthodox provinces. So, whenever you're ready, go ahead and declare on whichever nation you want over here in order to shrink them down to 1 to 2 provinces and to make them Catholic. In my game right here, I'm going to be declaring on Serbia. They're usually allied to Bosnia, so I'm going to co-belligerent Bosnia. And in this war, what I'm going to do is take this province, this province, this province, and this province to prevent the Ottomans from pushing in further. That will also give me another gold mine right here, the gold mine in Kosovo, and Serbia will still be alive in these 3 provinces right here. And I'm also going to take some provinces from Bosnia as well to shrink them down to size. So there we go. There's my next declaration on these guys right here. That's the goal. Take a couple of provinces to shrink them, to later flip them to Catholic, to prevent the Ottomans from expanding, and the main end goal of this is to force them into the HRE later. So there's my declaration. Once Bohemia annexes their subjects Glogau and Opole, you will be able to take the mission Recover Silesia, which gives us a dev discount over there, along with losing 5 years of separatism. Of course, Bohemia gets those bonuses, but more importantly, we gain a permaclaim on Slovakia, Little Poland, Red Ruthenia, and that other area in Poland right there. And in fact, Poland seems to have lost quite a bit of land to the Teutons in my game right here, which is definitely unusual. Either way, more on that later. Do take this mission. The important claims from this mission are not the ones on Hungary and Bohemia, but these ones right here. Because after we take over these provinces from Poland over here, we will gain a Restoration of Union CB on them as well. And if you're lucky, that'll also include Lithuania, which is usually the case in 90% of the campaigns. And even though Poland has lost provinces over here, for me it's not a problem. Later, we'll just do a reconquest when we PU them. Either way, more on Poland later, after we wrap up a war or two in the Balkans, and after we rein in the Italians, which of course happens after 1460, and I'll definitely show you how. Now that I've defeated Serbia and Bosnia, this is what I'll be doing. So, I'll be taking these provinces right here to prevent the Ottomans from pushing in. Then I'll also take this one to shrink them down to 2, and I'll take 2 provinces from Bosnia as well and leave them alive with 2. Bosnia is already Catholic, so I'm gonna make this 2 province, Serbia, that still exists, be Catholic as well. And I'm also gonna take as much money as I can. And that's my war with those 2 guys done. Now, they're Catholic, and they're small enough to where we can push them into the HRE. We've prevented the Ottomans from pushing this way, and we've got another gold mine. Later, I'll be fighting Herzegovina to make them Catholic as well. And eventually, once we get that CB over there, we're going to be forcing all of these guys to enter the HRE. But now that you've done this, it's time to rein in the Italians. Of course, make sure to add all available provinces to the HRE. And there we go, once 1460 hits, you will gain the Shadow Kingdom event right here, where the Emperor must decide summon the Diet is the only option, and the Shadow Kingdom Imperial Incident becomes active. So, after this happens, you're going to go into the HRE interface right here, and you have 2 options. You either vote, it's time to abandon Italy, you lose prestige, lose Imperial authority, and every Italian nation, basically these guys right here, that's in the HRE, unless you're allied to them, will leave the HRE. The other option right here is we must rein in the Italians, where we have until 1490, so 30 years, to get all of these guys to be able to enter the HRE, basically to take this decision right here, and it'll tell you which nations you need to do that to. In my game, it's all of them. Of course, you are going to be choosing this second option right here. We must rein in the Italians. Never choose this first option that the AI always does. So there we go. Now we've chosen this, and it's time to wait for a year. And there we go. In my game, the Burgundian succession has happened as well. And of course, in your game, once it does happen, you will be getting Burgundy as your junior partner as well. And there we go. This is what Burgundy looks like in my game. They've expanded a bit. They have a lost Holland, however. It's not a big deal. Either way, once that happens, perfect. Another junior partner under our belt. Now that the Shadow Kingdom event is officially passed, we can go ahead and go into our national decisions right here and see which nations we need to rein in order to take this decision to stop these guys from leaving the HRE. And reining in means that the target country must fulfill at least one of the following conditions. Either they need to have 150 opinion of us, they need to be a free city in the HRE, our subject, or our ally, or we need to defeat them in a war. And the easiest way to do this right here is by allying all of them. Now you may think it's impossible to ally all of these guys, right? They're rivaled. If we ally Savoy, we might not be able to ally Milan since they're rivals or something like that. But trust me, I've played Austria so much, it's probably one of my most played nations in the game. There's always a sequence that you can do that will enable you to ally all of these guys. You just need to work it out and try every different possibility. So, you may need to ally Saluzzo, then ally Savoy, then ally Milan. Then break your alliance with Saluzzo to ally Ferrara. And then re-ally Saluzzo. Then you may need to break your alliance with Milan to ally Florence, and then re-ally Milan, and then break your alliance with Genoa to ally Bologna or something like that. But trust me, there is always a sequence available that will enable you to be allied with all of these guys at the same time. So, even though you have until 1490, it's time to do this. You're going to be doing this after 1460, of course, and at this point, the wars you've done are versus Bohemia, Venice, the Balkan guys, and possibly Hungary. So after your initial 3 or 4 wars, that is when you're going to do it. So you're simply going to recall all your diplomats right here and look for a Diplorep advisor, which is going to help out a lot. And then it's time to try and find the sequence which will enable us to ally all of these guys. It is always possible, trust me. You can look at my past guides as well and past Austria playthroughs. And while I'm doing this, while I'm reining in the Italians, there we go, the Duchess of Burgundy has died, and we inherit all of Burgundy. It really doesn't matter if you get these provinces yourself or not. We are still able to expand into France later on. But if you do end up getting Burgundy, of course, make sure to core everything up over here. We definitely do have the governing capacity to do it. Don't delete the armies just yet. Make sure to rearrange some of them as well. And there we go. Even if you own this directly or through Burgundy, it doesn't matter, these are still your provinces. And as we can see, these are the alliances that I've gotten so far, just a couple of months after the previous clip, and the only nations that are left for me are, as we can see, Ferrara and Genoa. Lucca doesn't matter because I defeated them in a war earlier on. So, obviously, we can't ally Genoa because they hate me. We can't ally Ferrara because they also hate me. So what we need to do is get that relation up somehow. So I'm going to be sending gifts over here to Genoa, royal marrying Ferrara, even though it's going to take up a relation slot later down the line. Anything we need to do, and there we go, actually Ferrara can already be allied, so only Genoa is going to be left. So what I'm going to do with them, there's a guarantee first. I'm going to send them a gift, I'm going to offer them mill access, everything you need to do to get relations up with them in order to ally them. Of course, if the alliances are what's the problem, and in this case, they are going to be the problem, I might actually break my alliance here with Milan, and then ally Genoa, try to re-ally Milan, maybe break my alliance with Florence, then try and ally Genoa, try and re-ally Florence. But trust me, like I said, there's always a sequence. And hey, if that doesn't work, you can always defeat them. What I'm going to try right here is breaking my alliance with Milan, since they do like me quite a lot. That will enable me to ally Genoa, and since Milan likes me enough, I will be able to re-ally Milan. Of course, Bologna is threatening to break their alliance with me right here, but let's hope that doesn't happen. And there we go, let's see, there's the alliance with Genoa, which means now only Milan is left, as we can see, and let's wait for a day right here. And there's a day, and there's an alliance with Milan as well, which means now we've allied all of the Italian nations, even though a bunch of them are rival to each other. And just like that, Italy has been returned to the fold. Long live the empire, we gain 25 imperial authority. And there we go, in just about a year, that's done. We're done reigning in the Italians. There's always a way to do it. After this, of course, break your alliance with everyone. You don't need them taking up a Diplo slot. Just keep your alliance with the Pope, of course. Of course, you will have royal marriages or guarantees with some of these guys. Make sure to remove the guarantees as well. And well, for the royal marriages, you're going to have to wait. By the way, these Venetian guys that we released that we're guaranteeing, that doesn't take up a Diplo slot. That guarantee is only active until our truce is active. So no need to remove your guarantee on the guys that we released from Venice. Now that we've reined in the Italians, it's time to chill for about a year and look for other areas of expansion. And the other areas of expansion after this are, of course, Poland right here, since we do have those claims on them. And then if you've gotten the Burgundian succession, another option is France. After you rein in the Italians, another imperial incident will become active, the Pope and the Emperor, where basically we can choose whether to have the Pope join the HRE or have him not join the HRE. Of course, what do you think we should pick? That's right, the Pope should join the HRE. This will make the Pope a part of the HRE, it'll make him like us more, and it's pretty good for any HRE member state. So, just vote for this. The Pope will join the Empire. Now, in my game right here, Poland has actually declared on, let's see, on who? They've actually declared on Moldavia because they don't take into account Hungary's overlord, which is me, so they don't take into account my other subject, Bohemia, and all of my allies. Now, I did mention this in my Angevin Empire playthrough when Burgundy kept declaring on France as a bug, but lots of you are actually saying that it's not a bug and that the AI actually does do this. So, instead of just white piecing them from our console, like I did in that playthrough, I am actually gonna go ahead and fight Poland. Because either way, it is most likely our next war and we do need to expand into them. So what I'm simply going to do is call in literally everyone into this war and go ahead and defeat Poland. I guess they're feeling pretty powerful since they just wiped out the Teutons thanks to the Danzig event. Either way, once you rein in the Italians, continue with something like this. It is most likely going to be Poland, and you're going to focus on taking half of the provinces that you have claims on over here. Or another reason they may have declared is that they're Tech 5 and none of us are Tech 5. And once the Pope and the Emperor, the Imperial Incident is over, the Pope will join the HRE, which is excellent. That is something we do want to happen. Don't forget to develop this additional gold mine down here up to 10 production as well. And sometime around the first 50 years of the campaign, you will get the Milanese succession event where you can choose whether to gain a Restoration of Union CB on Milan as well. Of course, you can select the throne belongs to us, where we can go ahead and PU them, or you can select we have no interest in Milan. And honestly, this isn't really that important to our campaign. Milan will end up being our subject later on. Either way, once we pass the revoke the privilege reform, and basically they won't take up a Diplo slot. So when you think about it, there's really no need to PU them during this early point of the game. But honestly, you can do whatever you want to. Of course, it's always fun to get more junior partners, so you can definitely go ahead and choose this first option, but it's your choice whether to PU them or not. Once you get around 60 to 70% war score versus Poland, you're good to go ahead and peace out, because really, all we want is worth 60 to 70% of war score. And we're not going to be taking war reps, we're not going to be taking money from them, we're not going to be doing anything else, because we do want our truce with them to run out as fast as possible. Now, of course, according to this mission right here, Conquer Galicia, the highlighted provinces are the ones that we need to own. Basically, all of these right here that we have claims on. And what I recommend doing is to take these 4 in your first war, or these 7 right here in your first war. These are 46 AE, these other ones are 41 AE, so you want to do half now, half later. It's totally up to you whether you take these now, or these now, and then these later, or these later. In my game, I'm going to take these, simply because I have them selected, and then in our next war, we're going to take the rest of them. So, in your first war versus Poland, these 7 or these 4, no money, no war reps, nothing like that. And that's your first war with Poland, done. Now it's time to go back home and chill. Around the 1460s is when you'll be passing your second imperial reform as well, Institute Reichsregiment. For your first stage ability, you're of course gonna take Justified Wars. Once you hit Admin Tech 5, it will be time for your first idea group, and for your first idea group as Austria, you're of course going to open up with Diplo ideas. This is an absolute necessity for any world conquest, and it's super important for a nation such as ourselves. The diplomats will help us avoid coalitions, improve relations with our subjects and with our allies. The improved relations is also great as well. The Diplo advisor discount, the Diplo relations is much needed. The Diplo rep is excellent. The province war score cost will enable us to take more, and this right here will enable us to get a lot of PUs, not through our missions. So diplomatic ideas for your first idea group. Of course, at a certain point, you will be able to go ahead and take new burger loans, and when you do take new burger loans, you should focus on improving your nation. Money isn't really a focus as Austria, let's be real. Even though we're not making that much, it'll never really be a struggle, but definitely start off by building marketplaces in all the provinces that give you more than 2 trade power. After that, you can continue with churches for every province that gives you more than 0.1 ducats. And after that, of course, you'll be doing the workshops as well. Because our autonomy will have been increasing due to our low crown land ownership right at the start, and definitely make sure to seize land whenever the estates are above 50 loyalty. That's going to happen after I build a church in Vienna right here. Either way, make sure to lower autonomy every 10 or 15 years, whenever you can. This is very much needed. Once you finish your war with Poland, it is time to start preparing for later when we are gonna expand the HRE thanks to our third reform right here, Absolute Reichsstabilitat, which gives us the CB on non-members bordering the empire to force them to join the empire. So, in order to prepare for that later on, we need to have nations around the HRE that we're going to force to enter. We've already done some of these things by working on the Balkan minors right here, such as in my game, Bosnia, Serbia, and Herzegovina, maybe even Ragusa, and by fighting Venice earlier on and releasing some of the guys over here. But we also have other areas to do this in, mainly Lithuania, if Poland hasn't PU'd them. In my game, of course, they have, and then also France by making them release a bunch of nations over in France. You will be able to do this after you've gotten the Burgundian succession, of course, whether you border them or Burgundy borders them. Either way, you'll somehow have some sort of CB on them. And that's exactly what I'm going to do now. I'm going to declare on France using the Imperial Band CB, that's the CB I have now, and with that CB, I'm going to make them give these provinces back to Provence over here, Verdun and Bar, for example. Then later we can force Provence to enter the HRE if they haven't already, and we're going to make them release some other nations as well, such as Champagne over here in these provinces, for example. Then we have all of their initial vassals right here, such as Berry, Bourbon, Dauphine, Toulouse, Gascony, you get the point. France can blow up with many nations inside of it, and we're going to force all of those nations to enter the HRE. So, whenever you're ready, after you wrapped up your war with Poland, go ahead and declare on whichever nation you want to around you, then you can make them release nations so we can force them in the HRE. In my game, of course, it's France. Other possible candidates for this are, of course, Venice, if you haven't fought them yet, Denmark, to make them release Holstein, for example, like I said, Lithuania, if Poland hasn't PU'd them, and of course, later on, once we get Poland as our junior partner, the Ottomans as well. For your Tier 3 government reform, I recommend Representatives of the Crown. This makes vassals and marches gain 25% more national tax, and it gives us +1 diplo relations, plus 25% vassal force limit contribution, and of course the tributary thing is irrelevant. This isn't that important for now because we really don't have vassals, and the only thing that we're going to use is the +1 diplo relations, but later, once we revoke this privilege, this may even become one, if not the most powerful government reform that we have. A government reform that's not that powerful for 99% of the nations around the globe, but for Austria, once you revoke the privilege, it is absolutely insane. At this point, I've also devved my second gold mine up to 10 production. You should have done the same. And once you defeat France, for example, like I said, what you're going to do is make them release a bunch of nations. And you're simply going to go into the Release Nations tab right here in the P screen and make sure to make them release nations that border the HRE or that border nations that border the HRE. For example, in your first war with France, you're not going to make them release Gascony or someone like that you can't actually reach. So maybe do someone like Bar over here in these two provinces, for example. Then you can do Champagne in these provinces. All of these guys border the HRE. Then do Dauphine. They border the HRE down here. Don't do someone like Foix, for example. They're over here. Look for guys like these. Let's check Orléans. Yes, Orléans will border, well, most of the HRE. So maybe someone like Bourbon is better. Yes, Bourbon is better. Let's try Berry. Berry is excellent. What about Auvergne? Auvergne is right there. They border the guys that border the guys. And that's about enough for now. So that's almost half of what France has in my game released through various nations. Later, all of these guys, or, well, at least the guys that stay alive, we will be able to force them into the HRE after we pass our third imperial reform. And then, even if France conquers some of them, even if someone else conquers some of them, don't worry, we're going to make France, or whoever is here, release all of these other guys as well, and we're going to force them into the HRE. Some of you may be wondering, Hawk, shouldn't we be conquering all of these guys? We're fighting France anyway. Why not get the land for ourselves? Don't worry about that. We're saving admin points for now. Listen. We're going to be conquering the entire world. I don't think you should concern yourself with a third of France. So that's the peace deal you want to do. Make them release as many nations as you can that border the HRE. And there we go. That's your war with France done. Now, around this point, you may look to complete the mission Imperial Ascendancy. And of course, to complete it, we either need to have revoked the privilege, or we need to have no member state of the HRE, except for us, with more than 10 provinces. And in your game, most likely, that nation that is going to cause you a problem is going to be Brandenburg, because as we can see, Brandenburg does have 10 provinces. So to complete this mission, the only thing we need to do is make Brandenburg have less than 10 provinces. Or maybe in your game, it's someone else, maybe like Milan or someone like that, or the Pope or Florence, they've grown, so we do need to deal with them. So you may look into dealing with this mission. Some of these missions right here down this branch are really nice. They give us some very nice bonuses like Imperial Authority and Everyone Likes Us and Yearly People Influence, so you may think they're pretty important, but it's not like they'll slow down your game if you don't do them. So at this point, if you want to, you can work on completing some of these missions. The requirements are pretty simple. Now, even though I'm helping the Pope in a war versus Naples, because my truce with Poland is up, I am going to be declaring on them in order to take over the rest of the provinces that we got claims on. And that's exactly what you're going to do as well. After you fought Poland, you did 1 or 2 wars anywhere around the HRE to do something like we just did with France, and then your truce with Poland will be up, in which case you should be declaring on them in order to take the rest of the provinces from them. So that's why I'm going to be declaring right here the conquest of Krakow, for example, and I'm going to call in some of my allies to help out. Do this immediately as soon as your truce with Poland is up, because we do want to get the entire job with them done as soon as possible. We want to take these provinces in our first war, these provinces in our second war, then PU them, and then we'll be fighting the Ottomans. And once you have enough war score versus Poland to take the rest of the provinces that you need, you're good to go ahead and peace out. Once again, just like in our first war, we're going to do in this war, no money, no war reps, nothing else, just either these 4 or these 7 provinces right here. And that's it. That's your second war with Poland done. Now we have all of the necessary provinces in order to take the mission Conquer Galicia, which gives us admin points and a restoration of Union CB on Poland. However, we're not going to be taking this mission until our truce with Poland is up, because we do want to assess the situation and not accidentally let the CB go to waste if in case we can't for some reason declare on them. So that's your second war with Poland done. Now it's time to chill and focus on doing the things that we did while we were waiting for our truce with them to expire. By this point, you may have already passed or are ready to pass the third imperial reform, which will enable us to force nations in the HRE. Once your war with Poland is done, like I said, you're going to continue to do the things we've already been doing. In my game, what I'm going to do right here is actually declare on Wallachia, because they're allied to Herzegovina. If Wallachia exists in your game, you can definitely go ahead and fight them. This isn't something that's necessary. What I recommend is actually not taking these provinces for yourself. Either vassalize Wallachia or just feed it to Hungary. It's really not that relevant what we do with them. But more importantly for me in this war, I'm actually gonna force Herzegovina to become Catholic, just so we can force them along with Bosnia and Serbia later on in the HRE. So I'm gonna declare using one of Hungary's CBs, and there we go. Very simple. And there we go. Now we defeated Herzegovina and Wallachia. What I'm gonna do with Herzegovina is make them Catholic, just like that. Even though Ragusa might conquer them now, because they've declared on them, it's really not a problem, because we're going to force Ragusa in anyway. And there we go. Now Herzegovina's Catholic. And what I'm going to do with Wallachia is actually just feed them to Hungary, because I don't want them taking up a Diplo slot, and I don't want to waste the admin points on them either. Actually, I can't piece them out just yet, but soon I'll do it. There we go. Now we can piece them out. And at this point, around the 1480s, which is pretty normal, honestly, you will be able to pass your third imperial reform, Absolute Reichsstabilitat. This gives every province in the empire minus 25% state maintenance, and it gives us the CP on non-members bordering the HRE to force them to join the empire. This is the most relevant and most important reform that will take all the way until revoke the privilege. So there we go. There's your third imperial reform. Just like that, you've gained that CB on a bunch of nations that border the HRE. If you open up the Imperial map mode, this is what you're going to see. And let's see which nations border the HRE in my game. So that will be Bosnia right here. There's that CB, Expand Empire. It should work on Herzegovina. There it is as well. There it is on Ragusa as well. It's not on Serbia, by the way, because these provinces of mine, they aren't in the HRE because they don't border other HRE provinces. But we can use it on Friuli, for example. We should be able to use it on Verona. There it is. On Padua as well. Venice too, as soon as our truce with them is up. There it is on Dauphine, for example. On Bourbon. You get the point. All of these guys, forcing them to enter the HRE, well, that's just gonna change our gameplay completely. And soon, you'll see why. Either way, more on wars later. For now, once you hit admin tech 7, it is time for your most important idea group if you're doing a one faith. And even if you're not doing a one faith, this is the idea group that you should take. Even if you're just doing a regular world conquest, or not even that, a regular Austria playthrough where you don't even plan on doing that much. For your second idea group, it is time for religious ideas. Religious, of course, is the all-important idea group for a one faith playthrough. You get +1 missionary and minus 50% missionary maintenance cost, so that's excellent. There's a second missionary right there. The manpower in true faith provinces is pretty much +10% national manpower, since everything will be true faith. Then we got +3% missionary strength, along with our own +2% missionary strength. Absolutely insane. Tolerance of the true faith is great. Yearly papal influence and prestige per development for missionary is awesome. Opinion of country from others of the same religion is excellent. And of course, the Deus Vult CB, well, we'll be using that a lot. So it's literally a no-brainer. Religious ideas for your second idea group. Just to point out that in my game, I've gotten this province right here because Strasbourg took it from the Palatinate. When I asked for unlawful territory, it went to me because I think someone, maybe Strasbourg, made the Palatinate revoke their core on faults. So that's why I got it. As Austria, or as the Emperor, you are able to take any province in the HRE without it connecting to your country. That's how I have Luxembourg and Pfalz. Either way, after you've taken your third Imperial Reform, Absolute Reichsstabilitat, it is time to start expanding the HRE. And, for example, I'm going to show it off in my game right here by declaring on Verona. No need to call in any allies. However, be careful with the fact that you can't force other nations that are allies of the nation you're using the CB on to join the HRE. For example, I want to force all of these guys in right here, right? However, if I declare on Bosnia here, I can't force Serbia to enter in the same war. So, any other nation that you might want to force in the HRE that you're already fighting, white piece them so you can declare on them later. So if I declare on Bosnia right here, I just white piece Serbia and declare on them later. Either way, more on that later when I actually fight them. For now, let's do it on Verona. And once you defeat whichever nation you're fighting to force them into the HRE, what you're going to do is simply select the peace deal right here, expand empire. It's not even that much war score, so you don't need to beat up everyone and stuff like that. And there we go. Now we've forced Verona to enter the HRE. That's exactly what we want to do. I did forget to mention this earlier, but whenever you are able to abdicate, you should go ahead and do it because it gives us imperial authority. My heir right here, he's above 15. I could have done this 9 years ago. My ruler right here, he's 47. Of course we're gonna do it. These guys both suck, and keep in mind, even if you got a 666, honestly, I recommend abdicating either way. First, however, what you want to check before you abdicate is if all of your junior partners like you. In my game, that's Hungary and Bohemia. They do like me, so we're good on that. And make sure that you will get re-elected if your ruler dies. So, in my game, I got myself voting for me, and for other guys, which means, of course, I will get re-elected. So, if you're good to go with those two things, go ahead and simply abdicate. And just like that, there's 10 more imperial authority. Perfect. So, at this point, you've passed your third imperial reform, and you're waiting for your truce with Poland to expire so you can PU them. What do you do in the meantime? Of course, the only thing you're doing while you're waiting for your truce with Poland to expire to PU them is forcing other nations in the HRE. In my game right here, I'm going to declare on Padua now to force them into the HRE as well, but you can do it on whichever nation that is eligible you want to. You could fight some of the French guys, some of the Italian guys, some of the Balkan guys. It's totally up to you who you force and in what order you force them in the HRE. So there you go. There's my declaration on Padua. Let's call on the Pope. There we go. The war started only a few months ago. I've sieged down Padua, haven't done anything with Florence yet, and Padua will already accept to use this CB on them. There we go. That's all you need to do. And there's another member nation of the HRE. Earlier, I did talk about the Milan PU that you can get if you want to. What I recommend is if you're following this guide completely and planning on taking this privilege later on to make everyone in the HRE your vassal, of course, then don't PU Milan because you're going to get them either way. However, if you're not planning on going down this path for some reason, if you're not completely following along with the guide and you're not planning on making everyone in the HRE your vassal, in that case, definitely go ahead and PU Milan. Either way, while you're waiting for your truce with Poland to expire so you can PU them, keep declaring on various nations around you to force them into the HRE. I'm going to declare on Bosnia now. And there we go. Just like that, we gained a little bit of imperial authority. You do that every time you force someone to enter. And once your truce with Poland is up, of course, go ahead and assess Poland's alliance situation. If you're good to go ahead and declare, then you're going to go into your missions and take the mission Conquer Galicia right here. It gives us admin points and a restoration of union CB on Poland. And of course, when you're ready, simply declare that restoration of union war on Poland, and if you're lucky, you also got Lithuania as well if Poland PU'd them at the start. There we go. This should be the easiest war versus Poland. And once you get around 60 to 70% war score versus Poland, you can go ahead and peace them out and select the Union with Poland peace option, take all of their money or as much as you can, and that's that. Now you have Poland and possibly Lithuania as your junior partners. If you did not get Lithuania in this war where you PU'd Poland, you're going to do the same thing that we did to France and that we're going to do to the Ottomans to Lithuania as well. There are various nations you can pop out of Lithuania, such as Smolensk here, for example, Chernigov, Zaporozhye, Polotsk, and so on. You're going to make Lithuania release all of these guys, force them to be Catholic, and then force them into the HRE as well. Either way, after you PU Poland, you can take the mission King of Poland, which will give you -1 national unrest and +1 diplo rep for 20 years, and Poland loses some cores on provinces that you took. There we go. Make sure to improve with these guys immediately to get them above 0. Around the time after you PU Poland, you should be taking your 4th imperial reform, enact Geimener Fenning. Pretty important. After you PU Poland, you can continue with your wars to expand the HRE. In my game, I'm going to be declaring on Dauphine. For your tier 4 government reform, obviously for a one faith playthrough, you are going to be going with Lanes for the Church. This permanently increases the opinion of the Pope for us by 25, and of course it does give us some very nice curia bonuses and clergy stuff as well. This is the one to take for a one faith playthrough. And there we go, now we can force Dauphine into the Empire as well. Something else you can do around this point, if you haven't done it already, is fighting Denmark and the Kalmar Union. As you all know, Denmark starts off with Holstein, a nation that exists in these two provinces, and Holstein is technically part of the HRE right at the start, even though they're a vassal of Denmark, which means after Denmark annexes Holstein, they'll hold imperial provinces. So what you want to do is simply declare on Denmark with the imperial ban CB for the conquest of one of these provinces, and what I recommend is actually not releasing Holstein over here, and instead of taking these provinces yourself, which is something you can do. This is because this is going to be our expansion route over into Scandinavia and that entire region over there. So once we own these provinces, we're going to lay off Denmark for a little while because realistically we're going to be conquering Europe last, or well, depending on our conquest. But either way, this is how we're going to push into Scandinavia from these provinces over here. So whenever you want to, declare on Denmark in order to take the provinces that were originally owned by Holstein. Now, I do have to admit I was a little slow getting these guys to enter the HRE that we released over from France, and that's why France has reconquered some of them. Try to avoid something like this happening in your game. Once your truce with them is up, force them into the HRE before France can re-annex them. This is a mistake on my part. Something else you can do if you want to, this is completely optional, is stealing Norway or maybe Sweden as well when you shrink them down a little bit from Denmark and making them your vassals. This is something that's completely optional but definitely possible. Actually, it seems that even Sweden is possible in the peace deal to make them a vassal. It's only 79% war score if they haven't grown, by the way. This is thanks to this, of course, transfer subject at half cost, but it is quite a lot of aggressive expansion. So once again, it is completely optional, something that you can do if you want to. Norway, for example, it's not that much aggressive expansion, and that is exactly what I'm going to be doing in my game right here. So, I'll be getting Schleswig and Holstein for myself. This will further enable my expansion over into Scandinavia later on, and I'll be stealing Norway as my vassal. We're not expanding ourselves at this point either way. We're only forcing nations to enter the HRE. We're really going to start expanding once we fight the Ottomans over here, which is pretty soon after you PU Poland. Just get a couple of these small wars done after you PU Poland, and then you'll hit the Ottomans. Either way, there's my peace deal with Denmark, these two provinces, and Norway as my vassal. There we go. You can keep Norway around for a while. You don't really have to annex them. If you give them subsidies, they'll even start colonizing over in the New World, which is excellent. They'll colonize with the Catholic religion, of course. Of course, always keep taking out new burgher loans so you can improve your nation economically. I've already built up quite a few buildings, so now I'm going to focus on upgrading some centers of trade to level 2. You can work on upgrading monuments as well, but the one we really need at this point is the one in Prague, which gives us imperial authority growth. The other ones aren't too relevant for the early game, and it's much better to upgrade them later on when you have lots of money. So for now, keep focusing on buildings. Now I'm going to force Aquileia to enter the HRE. And there we go, let's force Aquileia into the HRE. After you've PU'd Poland, you've pretty much gotten all the important junior partners that we get through our missions in the early portion of the game. Bohemia, Hungary, Poland, and possibly Burgundy, and Lithuania. Either way, in any case, you have Poland, Bohemia, and Hungary, and you have a bunch of allies as well. Now, after you've peeled Poland and after you've done a couple of wars to make nations enter the HRE, now is when you hit the Ottomans for the first time. Don't worry that this is pretty much at the peak of their power. You and your subjects and your allies are way more powerful than the Ottomans, no matter how much they've expanded. So, after you do all those things that I just said, it is time to declare on the Ottomans, where we're going to be taking provinces to release Bulgaria and Byzantium from, and additional provinces for ourselves as well. I'm going to declare for one of Hungary's claims right here, since I haven't built any myself. You should have claims from your subjects as well. If not, by this point you definitely border the Ottomans, so spy on them and make some claims. In my game, they have allied France as well, which is super annoying. That's the Franco-Ottoman alliance, but either way, no big deal. This is still very doable. I'm also going to call in England, Cologne, the Palatinate, Castile, and the Papal State, my allies. At a certain point, once you get 4 junior partners, you will be able to take the mission Spread the von Habsburgs for +1 Diplo rep and -20% Diplo annex cost. You can save this mission for when you want to start annexing some of your subjects. I'm of course going to take it to show it off. And there we go. Something else you might be able to do during this time is take the mission Shift the Balance, where you and your subjects need to have more than 500 provinces over in Europe. If you take that mission, your ruler and heir will get 2 Diplo points, and you'll get +2 Monarch Diplo skill for 30 years, along with +25 Vassalization Acceptance. A very nice mission. And once you beat up the Ottomans enough, here's what I recommend that you do in the peace deal. Just take a couple of provinces over like this to release Bulgaria and Byzantium from. In my game, Bulgaria is going to pop out of these 3 provinces, Byzantium is going to pop out of these 3, and then you can take Constantinople and a couple of provinces over in Anatolia for yourself. You don't really care about aggressive expansion or overextension or anything like that during this war or any war with the Ottomans. And there we go. That's your war with the Ottomans done. After that, immediately go ahead and release Byzantium and Bulgaria as well. We can reconquer these Byzantine provinces and these Bulgarian provinces over here. Something that you also want to do at this point as well is force Bulgaria and Byzantium to be Catholic. Do it while they're small. And then, of course, you can convert their provinces as well while they're poor. Byzantium is a very good religious focused subject to have due to their own religiously focused national ideas, and they're usually always scripted to take religious as well, so you can feed Byzantium additional provinces over here or something like that so that Biz can convert them. Keep in mind though that there is a risk of this because Byzantium can sometimes make trade companies over here and not convert those provinces. In my game, however, I am going to grant them some additional provinces. I usually do that over in Anatolia. Maybe just this state right here and this state right here is enough. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grant them this province, and that province. They have some nice missions for these as well. Around this point is when you want to start paying attention to when the Protestant Reformation spawns. Basically, once a Reformed desire in the Catholic Church right here is over 100%. Usually it happens between the 1490s and the 1520s, so this is precisely the time. And that is one of the most important things that happens during the early game for Austria. We want to destroy all centers of Reformation, or at least all that we can. More on that later when the Protestant Reformation does spawn in my campaign. The Protestant Reformation did spawn in my game over in the province of Amsterdam in Holland right here, which is actually pretty lucky. That's a pretty good spawn right there. If it spawns in a province that you border, it's going to be excellent and it's going to be super, super easy. So what you want to do when this happens is wait for the nation that the center of Reformation spawned in to flip to Protestant. It's much easier if they're one province minor, for example, let's say Augsburg right here, right? They'll immediately flip to Protestant. If it's a slightly bigger nation like this, you are going to have to wait for them to flip to Protestant before you declare on them. So if it spawns in a nation that you border, start spying on them and building up a claim immediately so you have a CB to declare on them with. If, for example, it spawns in Goslar or something like that, a nation that you don't border and can't build a claim on, you still do have a little bit of time before the Age of Discovery ends in about 10 years that you build chain claims all the way to there. So what you would do is, for example, if it's Goslar, you spy on Passau, build a claim here, spy on Munich, build a claim there, spy on the Palatinate, build a claim there, and basically chain claim your way over to there thanks to this age ability right here, claims bordering claims. If, however, if it's not the Age of Discovery anymore, it's the Age of Reformation, and you can't do claims bordering claims, you are just gonna have to no CB any nation. For example, if it's someone like Frankfurt and I can't build a claim over to them, I'm just gonna go ahead and no CB them to force being Catholic on them. Of course, you won't get that much aggressive expansion since you're not actually going to be taking anything, but you're probably going to be no CBing some nations. Either way, just make sure they convert to Protestant before you declare. There's no reason to declare now since we can't force them to convert to anything. They're still Catholic. And you're going to be doing this, or trying to do this, with every center of reformation that spawns. And there we go. Now Holland has converted to Protestant. I can go ahead and declare on them. Unfortunately, Brandenburg's also spawned a center of reformation, so we're going to have to wipe this one out as well. And another one that is going to be pretty annoying to take care of is the one over here in Denmark. Either way, you do need to start working on these immediately. Around this point, I'm also able to pass Perpetual Diet. And of course, don't forget to keep abdicating either when your heir is 15 years old. Just make sure that everyone here likes you, all of your junior partners, and that you will get re-elected HRE Emperor. Both of those things are good in my game, so I am going to abdicate here. And there we go. That's more imperial authority. That's the only reason we're doing it. Keep in mind that the only way to force convert a nation and make the center of reformation disappear is if it's in their capital. In my case, in Holland, it's not in their capital. It's not in Hague, which is Holland's capital. Neither is it in Brandenburg. It's not in Berlin. So even if we force these guys, both of them, Holland and Brandenburg, to become Catholic, that center of reformation will remain. So we do need to look for another way to wipe it out, which I'll show you right now. Either way, I'm going to be declaring on Holland right here, who luckily in my game is allied to Denmark, which means we can take out 2 centers of reformation in one war. Super nice. I'm going to call in all my allies to help out, since Denmark is annoying, and there we go. Declare on these guys immediately. Of course, you can always Alt F4 and respawn the centers of reformation until you get them in a 1 province minor that you can insta-force convert and make their center of reformation disappear. It's totally up to you how you do it. And I actually didn't notice, but I did end up inheriting Bohemia once I disinherited my ruler. This is definitely something that can and will happen during your playthroughs as well. Now, Bohemia is actually really good to inherit them or integrate them manually first, mostly because of the historical center of Prague monument right here, which gives us even more imperial authority growth. Now, right now, we're not taking advantage of the benefits of this province in my game specifically because Prague is still Hussite. But if you do end up annexing or inheriting Bohemia, and if this province is still Hussite, you do want to convert it to Catholic immediately and immediately try and upgrade it to a tier 3 monument so you can take even more advantage of the imperial authority growth, which at tier 3 is plus 0.15, at tier 2 it's plus 0.10. Either way, an excellent thing that happened right here and that you should work on doing as well. Pretty much annex Bohemia after 50 years are up, after you've PU'd them. Now that I defeated Denmark, I'm going to separate peace them and take the center of reformation from them, just like that. And what I'm going to do with Holland right here, of course, because their center of reformation isn't in their capital, so it won't get auto-converted if I force them to go back to Catholic, what I'm going to do is take Amsterdam right here and then force them to be Catholic, just like that. So there we go. Now they're no longer Protestant, which means they won't give us any penalties to imperial authority growth, and we own the centers of reformation ourselves. Either way, now that we own the centers of reformation, sometimes we may be able to convert them and sometimes not. Let's go ahead and check in my game right here. So we took Amsterdam and Funen, I guess this province over here from Denmark. And Amsterdam we actually can't convert because it does have religious zeal on it. However, this other province that we took from Denmark, we actually can convert it, which means that there's a center of reformation wiped out. We'll try and do the same with Brandenburg right here, my ally, which I'm going to have to break my alliance with them now because, of course, we are going to fight them. Luckily, I do border them, so I can spy on them. This is where our entire focus shifts as soon as the Protestant Reformation spawns, focusing on wiping out the centers of Reformation and focusing on forcing nations to go back to being Catholic. We still can't ask them to become Catholic with this emperor action right here because we don't have an official faith of the HRE. At a certain point, if you've gotten the Burgundian succession and if you haven't annexed Burgundy, when you own these provinces up here, the Dutch revolt disaster will start ticking, where basically the Netherlands breaks free from us. You can of course let this happen. They'll be part of the HRE anyway, so they'll end up being your subject anyway, but to avoid it, all you gotta do is move your capital over to the lowlands. I'll do it as soon as I get enough admin points. At this point, I'm helping England fight Scotland, and France is involved in this as well, but no matter, I'm still going to be declaring on Saxony right here, simply to force them to be Catholic again. Even though they don't have a center of reformation, this is something that we do need to do, to force Protestant guys to go back to being Catholic. I'll spy through Saxony as well, in order to get a claim on Anhalt, to force Anhalt to go back to being Catholic as well. This is what you're doing around this point too. And I've pretty much defeated Saxony, there we go, I'm going to force them to be Catholic. Something else you can do is you can give the clergy enforced unity of faith for more missionary strength. And now I can finally start converting this one center of reformation. It's much easier if it spawns in a 1 province minor that you can just force convert to Catholic, but oh well, I didn't have that luck in my campaign. Either way, much better that they spawned here rather than somewhere like Scotland or Portugal or Italy, like I've sometimes seen. Now that my truce with Brandenburg is up, I'll go ahead and fight them to take this province right here and hope that we can convert it just like we're doing with the one over in Denmark. But additionally, they're also allied to Anhalt, which is excellent. I can force convert Anhalt in this war. So there we go. That's how we're doing these things. And there's a forced religion on Anhalt. And we're pretty much done with Brandenburg since they will give me these two provinces. In fact, I can only take this one as well, which I'm going to do. Let's just get less aggressive expansion. We don't really need our provinces to be connected in the HRE, like I pointed out earlier. I am going to keep going in this war, though, to force them to go back to being Catholic. As you can see in the meantime, I am spying on other nations that I can spy on in order to declare on them and force them to go back to being Catholic as well. Denmark, though, we don't really care about them. They're not in the HRE. We'll deal with them later when we conquer them. Someone like Bologna, however, which I don't have a way of spying on them, since it is already the Age of Reformation, I am just going to have to no-CB them to force them to be Catholic. And now we're done with Brandenburg. There's that province for myself and a forced religion. And boom, just like that, Brandenburg is back to being Catholic. And let's see if we can actually convert the province of Brandenburg ourselves, or does it have a religious zeal just like Amsterdam? In fact, it doesn't have religious zeal, which is perfect. We can convert that province as well. So pretty soon right here, in just about a year or two, we'll have wiped out two centers of Reformation. We are going to have to wait quite a while for the one in Amsterdam, though, which is going to cause us problems. Oh well, sometimes it'd be like that. Of course, with Brandenburg, I'm not even going to keep this province right here. Why waste the admin points? What I'm going to do is simply convert it immediately and then just give it back to Brandenburg. And even though they just fought me, they are willing to re-ally me, which is excellent. Now I'm going to declare on Oldenburg to force to convert them to Catholic. You can check how many HRE guys are Catholic by just hovering over here. Right now we have 3 heretic princes. That will be Bologna, Oldenburg, and Dithmarschen. Basically, guys that have officially changed their faith. There we go, I just converted the Danish province, and now one center of Reformation is gone. Keep in mind though, it's not just these 3. Later on, the Reformed centers of Reformation will spawn as well, so you'll need to deal with 3 more. And hopefully you were lucky enough to where Bohemia didn't go down the Hussite path and they didn't start converting all of these to Hussite. Either way, even if they did do that, it's easy to take care of since they'll be your lands either way later on. And keep in mind, just like I mentioned with the England thing, if they choose to go Anglican, you might decide to Alt F4 until they choose to remain Catholic. And that's Oldenburg done as well. For Tier 5 government reform, I do recommend going with military engineering since you are going to be barraging a whole lot. There's Brandenburg converted as well, a second center of Reformation wiped out. Now, I'm just going to give this province back to Brandenburg since I'm really not interested in it and I want to have good relations with them. Either way, we're stuck not being able to convert this one in Amsterdam. It is what it is. We'll be able to do it in November 1531, 11 years from now. And by that point, this province will have converted a bunch more provinces, and we will need to force convert back some of these guys as well. Once you get to this point in the imperial reforms where you can pass this, or this, obviously it's time to go down the centralization branch. This one right here, for the HRE merc stuff, isn't that important right now, and neither is this one for disallowing internal HRE wars. The one we're gunning for right here is, of course, revoke the privilege, so we want to get through these 3 before we can get to revoke the privilege. So, once you get to this point where these are your options, these 3, you need to go down the centralization branch. We're going to take these 2 only after we've taken these 3. And by the time you pass the first centralization HRE reform, and by the time you start fighting the Protestant Reformation, your realm should look a little something like this. Basically, we start off as Austria and kickstarted our campaign by PUing Bohemia. After that, you should have fought Venice to pop out various Italian nations from them and to take over some provinces over in the Balkans. And after that, we waited to see if we got Hungary as a junior partner for free, basically, if they chose to become our junior partner, and if not, then you should have fought Hungary and made them your junior partner, and that's how you start off with 2 junior partners. After that, of course, after that point, we were focusing on passing various imperial reforms and focusing on reining in the Italians. Like I said earlier in the video, there's always a way to ally these guys and make them stay in the HRE, and then, of course, the Pope joined as well. After that, we passed our 3rd imperial reform, the most important one, until we get to revoke the privilege, Absolute Reichsstabilitat, which gives us a CB on non-members bordering the empire to force them to join the empire. And after that point, we started forcing nations around us to enter the HRE. We started fighting Poland, taking half of the provinces in one war, half of the provinces in our second war, and then in our third war, PUing them and possibly Lithuania during the peacetime, we were forcing other nations in the HRE, and in the meantime, you probably should have gotten the Burgundian succession, and if you fought Denmark, you may have stolen Norway and or Sweden from them as well. And after you got Poland as your junior partner, you should have fought the Ottomans to release Bulgaria and Byzantium and to take some provinces for yourself, and your realm should look a little something like this. And after that point, when the Protestant Reformation spawned, you should have started fighting the Protestant Reformation in the way that I just explained to you. And that's pretty much what the early game and the start for an Austria World Conquest One Faith playthrough looks like. After this point, you're going to continue to do the same things we've already been doing, and after wrapping up France and the Ottomans, that is when you're going to start focusing on pushing into every single direction possible. So what you're doing after this point, after you strictly focus on dealing with the Reformation, basically you wipe out the Protestant centers of Reformation, continue with your game by dismantling France and the Ottomans, then the Reform centers of Reformation will spawn, you'll focus on dealing with them, and then you'll continue your campaign, and of course you'll follow along with the mission tree. Of course, you wipe out France, make them release a bunch of nations, force them into the HRE, you conquer the Ottomans over here, and after you're done with the Ottomans, you start snaking in various directions. You'll start going off this way into the hordes, you'll start going this way in Arabia, this way in Africa, and basically you'll be expanding on multiple fronts simultaneously. And of course, after you pass the Revoke the Privilege Imperial Reform, all of your subjects right here and your junior partners and your allies will do the bidding for you, and you don't even need a massive standing army except for really important wars with really big nations. Let's say there's a huge Timurids over here, you're going to want to focus on that yourself, or maybe a huge Ming that is actually powerful. Maybe Russia will become big and they'll be tough to fight, but usually you will be letting your vassals do the work. And after that, you do want to stay on this reform until the end of the game, and basically right at the end, you're going to click Renovate the Empire. Pretty much once you're done conquering everything, and once you want to start converting the final provinces to Catholic, that's when you'll renovate the empire. So you continue to push into France and the Ottomans. When you're done with them, start pushing into every single direction possible by focusing on expanding the empire and passing imperial reforms. By this point, of course, you shouldn't have only been focusing on the stuff we just talked about. You should have worked on improving your economy a little bit as well. I'm going to show you what my economy looks like at this point of the game, and you should have something similar. As we can see, I'm making about 24 ducats a month right here. I have 2 armies standing, 24/7, which is about decent for this comp. Actually, I need a little more infantry, but that is what my economy is looking like. I have 3 gold mines, by the way, the one I just inherited from Bohemia, Eger right here, and of course Intal and Kosovo right here are devved up to 10. This one I'm going to be devving up to 10 pretty soon as well. These are all the marketplaces that I've built pretty much in every center of trade and estuary province that I own, and honestly it's not really a lot, and I haven't even full stated everything because I've been focusing on an admin idea group. But I've also built a bunch of workshops in the high value trade good provinces. I've built a bunch of churches as well, and you're going to continue to do that. Later, you're going to build manufactories as well. And like I said, focus on upgrading monuments as well. The most important one is this one right here, of course, the historical center of Prague for plus 0.15 imperial authority growth, but you do have some very nice ones for missionary strength later down the line, and for missionaries as well that you are going to need to use, such as the Hedalstave church right here for a +1 missionary. It is actually pretty important, so focus on finding monuments like this and upgrading them as well. Of course, you are going to continue to follow along with your mission tree as well. At this point in the game, it doesn't really interest us too much, but of course, you're going to be pretty much automatically unlocking a bunch of these missions right here. This branch is very nice for imperial reforms and stuff like that. This one right here, the colonization branch, isn't really that relevant, but a multicultural empire is a very important one as well, where you gain another unique tier 1 government reform, an even more powerful one. And then of course this branch right here focuses on the Ottomans, and this branch focuses over here on some internal HRE, French and Italian things that you'll get to unlock all the way at the end of the game. This is what we took for our first 2 idea groups, Diplo and Religious. Obviously, for a World Conquest, One Faith playthrough for your 3rd idea group, obviously you're going to be going with influence ideas. You're going to end up with around 50 vassals later on. Don't worry, they don't take up a Diplo slot, the HRE guys, but influence is absolutely a no-brainer because we're going to be playing so heavily with subjects all throughout the world. And not just the HRE guys, but nations like Bulgaria and Byzantium as well that we're going to reconquer their cores. You got Iraq over here, Syria. I do recommend making Najd a vassal as well and forcing them to Catholic. They have very good conversion focused national ideas as well, just like Byzantium. So influence for your 3rd idea group, and then for your 4th one, obviously it's going to be admin ideas for the minus 25% core creation cost and the governing capacity as well. Super important. So that's your standard 4 idea groups opener for any One Faith or World Conquest playthrough. Diplo, Religious, influence, admin. The rest of the idea groups are totally up to you, and I'm going to be honest, they don't even matter. This is what we took for our first 5 government reforms. Obviously, you're going to be changing your first one later on when you take that mission right here, Multicultural Empire, but for now, that doesn't matter. For your Tier 6 government reform, I recommend Aristocratic Court. Later, when Absolutism spawns, you can swap to Royal Decree. For Tier 7, Meritocratic Recruitment is good, but you could also consider Dynastic Administration. For Tier 8, I recommend Embrace the Economic Theory. For Tier 9, I recommend Leviathan, or 6 Books of the Republic. And for Tier 10 and Tier 11, once again, even though it's a One Faith World Conquest playthrough, still all of them are very good. Take whichever one you want at that point in the game. You won't make a mistake with either one of them. And like I said, by around the time you pass the first Imperial Centralization Reform, and by around the time you start fighting the Protestant Reformation, your realm should look a little something like this. If you're not that confident in your abilities, or if you're not sure if your game is going to go like mine, this save file is available for all YouTube members in the Save Games Discord channel, and you can continue playing as Austria from this state forward. Let me know in the comments below what's the next nation that I should do a guide on. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like, it really helps out a lot, and if you like the content and want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of them. And you can become a member today, and join the Discord, the link is in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with another EU4 video.